You ever notice how life has a twisted sense of humor? Like when you're running late for work and your car won't start? Or when you finally sit down with a hot cup of coffee, only for your kid to accidentally test its flying abilities? Or when a pigeon ruins your entire life? It started on a Thursday, because of course it did. Thursdays are that awkward day of the week that isn't quite Friday but still somehow manages to be just as exhausting as Monday. I had just finished replacing the neighbor's porch light for the 5th time, because Bill, who insists he's good with tools, should never be allowed near wires, and I was walking back to my house when I saw it. Linda's car, parked in our driveway, which wasn't weird. What was weird was that she was sitting inside, gripping the steering wheel like she had just discovered it was made of snakes. She wasn't moving, just staring straight ahead, mouth slightly open, like a malfunctioning robot. Now, as a husband of nearly a decade, I knew two things for sure. When your wife looks like that, something is very, very wrong. When something is very, very wrong, it's probably your fault. So, being the brave and noble man that I am, I did what any rational husband would do. I grabbed the mail from the mailbox and gave myself a solid 30 seconds to prepare for whatever nonsense was about to hit me. That's when the pigeon got involved. It came out of nowhere, flying at approximately 1,000 miles per hour, and smacked right into the side mirror of Linda's car. Feathers everywhere. A tragic, feathery explosion. Linda, startled out of her catatonic state, screamed. And that's when it happened. Her phone flew out of her hand, smacked against the windshield, and landed perfectly on the dashboard, screen facing up. And that's when I saw it. A slideshow. No, not a text. Not a message popping up with a, "Hey, last night was amazing," or "Hope your husband doesn't suspect anything, wink wink." No, Linda, my lovely, intelligent wife, had been sitting in our driveway, staring at an entire slideshow of what I can only assume were photographic highlights of her recent betrayal. I didn't see the details, just enough to know that it wasn't pictures of our kids' last soccer game or a Pinterest board of home renovation ideas, and definitely not enough to prepare me for what came next. Linda, realizing that her phone had committed treason, lunged for it like a raccoon protecting stolen trash. In doing so, she slammed her elbow into the car horn, which let out a loud, obnoxious blare, enough to make Mrs. Rodriguez from next door peek out her window, armed with her usual cup of tea and insatiable curiosity. So there I was, in my own driveway, watching my wife wrestle with her own phone while our nosy neighbor got ready for what I assume was the most exciting thing she had seen since I accidentally set my grill on fire last summer. And that's when Linda did something that truly confirmed she was guilty. She hit the windshield wipers. Full speed. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a woman try to look innocent while her windshield wipers go absolutely feral during a perfectly dry day, but I'll tell you, it's not convincing. I folded my arms and tilted my head, watching as she fumbled to turn them off, her face rapidly shifting through at least 6 different emotions before settling on one: panic. And that's when I knew. I didn't know who, I didn't know for how long, but I knew. And I knew, without a doubt, that this was about to be the most ridiculous day of my life. Linda still hadn't gotten out of the car. She was sitting there, phone gripped so tightly it looked like she was trying to crush it with her bare hands. The windshield wipers, which had no reason to be involved in this situation, had finally stopped their dramatic tantrum. The pigeon was nowhere to be seen, probably off telling its bird friends about how it just witnessed a marital disaster unfold. I stood next to the driver's side door, arms crossed, waiting for whatever nonsense excuse Linda was going to come up with. I knew she was stalling, probably running through every possible scenario in her head to figure out how to explain why she had a full-on PowerPoint presentation of her shady activities on display in broad daylight. "Are you going to sit in there all day, or do I have to get the garden hose?" I asked. She finally sighed and rolled down the window an inch. Not all the way, just enough to look at me like I was the problem. "What?" she said. "Oh, we're playing that game." I motioned to the phone, which was now face down on her lap, as if that would erase what I'd already seen. "You want to explain why you looked like you just saw a ghost before your phone decided to ruin your life?" Her eyes darted to the side for a second before she settled into what I like to call her defensive Linda pose. Shoulders squared, chin up, ready to gaslight me into questioning my own existence. And that's when Caleb came bursting out of the house, completely unaware that his mother was attempting to lie her way out of something significant. Dad, there's a leak in the kitchen. Linda and I both snapped our heads toward him. What do you mean, a leak? I asked. He threw his hands up. I don't know, but there's water everywhere, and it smells weird. Linda used that as her golden opportunity to escape the conversation. She threw open the door, brushed past me without a word, and hurried into the house like she was deeply concerned about the kitchen's well-being. I stayed outside for a second, rubbing my face, trying to process what just happened. She was definitely hiding something. And now, thanks to what was probably a pipe deciding to ruin my day even more, I had to deal with plumbing instead of confronting my wife. I walked inside to find Linda standing in the kitchen, staring at the mess Caleb had mentioned. The sink had gone rogue, water pooling onto the floor, and the whole room smelled like damp socks and failure. Great, I muttered. Caleb, who was way too amused for a kid watching his house slowly flood, pointed at Linda. Mom tried to clean it up with paper towels. I looked down. Sure enough, there was a pile of useless, soggy paper towels floating in the water, because apparently, Linda thought she could defeat plumbing with the power of napkins. This is not how physics works, I said, stepping over the mess to turn off the water supply under the sink. Linda, still avoiding eye contact, muttered, I was just trying to help. Oh sure, just trying to help. Like how she was just sitting in her car for 10 minutes, staring at her phone, contemplating every choice she's made in the last 6 months. I grabbed a mop from the closet and handed it to Caleb, who, unlike his mother, didn't pretend to be useless in crisis situations. He took it without argument, mostly because he found it hilarious that his mom had failed so badly at damage control. While he handled that, I decided to test something. I casually walked over to Linda, leaned in a little and asked, So, who were you texting? Her reaction was so quick it was almost impressive. What? I kept my face neutral. Your phone. You were on it before the pigeon almost ended its life. Who were you talking to? Linda blinked. Just work. I nodded. Right. Work. She forced a smile. Yeah. Caleb, who was mopping with the enthusiasm of someone getting paid for it, chimed in, Didn't Mom say she had the day off today? Linda shot him a look that I recognized instantly. The please shut up before you make this worse look. I grinned. Oh, that's a good point, Caleb. She did say that. Linda opened her mouth, closed it, then sighed. Mo, can we not do this right now? Do what? I asked innocently. She ran a hand through her hair. You're making it sound like... I'm not making it sound like anything, I interrupted. I just think it's interesting that you're suddenly forgetting basic details about your own life. She exhaled sharply and crossed her arms. I don't have to explain everything I do. That's true, I said. But when you start acting like a terrible criminal who didn't plan her alibi in advance, it's a little concerning. Linda's jaw clenched, but she didn't say anything. Caleb, who was done with the kitchen disaster and now fully invested in whatever drama was unfolding, looked back and forth between us. So, am I supposed to leave the room? Or is this one of those arguments where you pretend I'm not here? Linda groaned. Go to your homework. Caleb smirked. That wasn't a no. Go, she repeated, pointing toward the hallway. He gave me a knowing look before heading to his room, clearly enjoying every second of watching his mother struggle. I turned back to Linda. All right, since we're clearly avoiding the elephant in the room, let's just cut to the chase. If I look at your phone right now, what am I going to find? Her whole face tensed. You don't trust me? I laughed. Linda, you just had a slideshow of something sketchy playing on your screen in the car. You look like you were watching your own funeral. And now, you're acting like the concept of me asking questions is offensive. She stayed silent. I nodded. Got it. I walked past her toward the counter, grabbed my keys, and shoved them into my pocket. Where are you going? She asked quickly. I turned back, grinning. To get answers. Her whole body stiffened. Mo. See you later, honey. And with that, I walked out the door. I wasn't actually going anywhere. I just wanted to see how fast she would panic. I didn't even make it halfway down the driveway before Linda, came storming out of the house like a woman on a mission. "Mo, stop." I stopped, but not because she told me to. I stopped because she wasn't wearing shoes, and there was a solid chance she was about to step directly onto a rock and destroy her own argument with pain. I wasn't about to miss that. "What?" I asked, turning around with the most innocent look I could manage. She folded her arms and stared at me. "Where are you going?" I shrugged. "Out." Her eyes narrowed. "Where?" I smiled. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe to talk to someone who actually knows what's going on in my own marriage." Her jaw tightened, and her right eye twitched. A new development. That was interesting. Linda was usually good at keeping a straight face when she was lying. But now? Now she looked like someone had just threatened to reveal that she still listened to boy bands in secret. "There's nothing going on," she said. I nodded. "That's great news. You should definitely stick with that story." Her foot started tapping against the pavement, which was a bold move considering she still wasn't wearing shoes. "Mo, can you just—" That's when Caleb, my wonderful, unbothered son, popped his head out the front door with a smirk. "Hey, Mom. Just so you know, there's glass in the driveway." Linda's face went pale. She looked down at her bare feet like she was reconsidering every decision she had ever made. I grinned. "You should probably go back inside before you step on something." She clenched her jaw. "You're not funny." I nodded. "That's what guilty people say." Caleb snickered. Linda glared at him. "Go back inside," she snapped. Caleb held up his hands and backed into the house. "Fine, but I'm taking notes for the future. This is gold." The door shut. I turned back to Linda. "So, you were saying?" She let out a sharp exhale and looked around like she was searching for an emergency exit. Then she did something I did not expect. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. "Here," she said, holding it out. I blinked. "What?" "Take it. If you don't believe me, go through it." Oh, she thought this was a power move. That was adorable. I tilted my head. "You wiped it already, didn't you?" Her fingers twitched slightly. "No." I grinned. "Cool. Then you won't mind if I go ahead and check, right?" Her face didn't move, but I knew she was screaming inside. I took the phone, flipped it over, and turned the screen on. Locked. I held it up. "Unlock it." She hesitated for half a second too long before tapping in her code. I watched closely. Then I started scrolling, and immediately started laughing. Linda had wiped everything. And I mean everything. No messages older than an hour. No call history. No emails. No social media logins. The woman had factory reset her entire personality. "This is impressive," I said, nodding approvingly. "It's almost like you knew I'd asked to see your phone and prepped for this exact situation." She crossed her arms. "I don't have to prove anything to you." I grinned. "That's the thing about lying, Linda. When you try too hard to look innocent, you just end up looking even dumber." She glared at me. "I didn't do anything." "Sure," I said, handing her phone back. "You're just a normal, faithful wife who spontaneously deleted her entire digital footprint for fun." She snatched it from my hand. "I don't have to listen to this." "Then don't," I said, walking back toward the house. She stared at me. "Where are you going?" I smirked. "Inside." "But—" I opened the door. "You coming? Or do you need to go make some more evidence disappear first?" Her face twitched. Then, without another word, she stomped past me into the house. This was too easy. Linda was usually a better liar than this, which meant she was panicking. And if she was panicking, that meant I was close to figuring it out. I just had to wait for her to mess up again. And knowing Linda, I wouldn't have to wait long. Linda had spent the rest of the evening avoiding me like I was a bill collector. She stayed in the bedroom, scrolling through her freshly wiped phone like she was hoping to summon back all the messages she had erased. I didn't bother going in there. I had no reason to push her. She was going to crack all on her own. Caleb, being the chaotic force of nature that he was, sat across from me at the kitchen table, eating cereal out of a mixing bowl because he claimed regular bowls were too small for his ambition. "So," he said between bites, "Mom's definitely guilty, right?" I leaned back in my chair. "Oh, absolutely." He nodded like this was exactly what he expected. "You gonna catch her?" Or just let her keep embarrassing herself? I smirked. Why rush? The longer she tries to cover it up, the funnier it gets. He pointed his spoon at me. Fair. But if she starts gaslighting you, let me know. I've been watching court videos, and I think I can argue better than half the lawyers out there. I laughed. Noted. After Caleb went back to his room, I figured I had two options. I could sit around and wait for Linda to trip over her own excuses, or I could speed up the process. And since patience has never really been my thing, I decided to take a little walk. Not outside. No, that would be too normal. I walked straight to Linda's closet. See, here's the thing about cheaters. They're stupid. They think deleting texts and clearing their call history is enough. But they always forget the little things. And Linda? She had forgotten something very, very important. I rummaged through her laundry basket first. Nothing interesting, unless you count the fact that she still hadn't folded the clothes I washed last week. Then I checked her purse. Usual stuff: wallet, receipts, gum that had been in there since last summer. And then, jackpot, her car keys. Linda never let anyone touch her car. Not because she had something to hide, but because she was convinced I would mess with her seat settings out of pure spite. But now she had real reasons to be territorial. I grabbed the keys, went outside, and unlocked her car. The second I opened the door, I knew she had not been thinking clearly. First of all, her passenger seat was adjusted all the way back. Linda was 5 feet 3 inches on a good day. She sat so close to the steering wheel that I used to joke she was trying to merge with the dashboard. So unless she had suddenly grown a foot overnight, someone else had been in that seat. And that someone was tall. I leaned in and checked the floor. Nothing. Glove compartment. Nothing. Then I flipped down the sun visor. And there it was. A parking receipt. Dated 2 nights ago. For a hotel. Linda, for all her frantic deleting and panicked excuses, had forgotten that paper exists. I smiled. Oh, this was going to be good. I took a picture of the receipt, put it back exactly where I found it, and locked the car. Then I went inside, tossed her keys back into her purse, and sat on the couch. Now came the fun part. I didn't say anything. Not that night. Not the next morning. I let her sweat. She was expecting me to keep pushing, to keep asking questions she could dodge. But I didn't. I just went about my day like I hadn't found solid proof that she was running around behind my back. By the time dinner rolled around, Linda was officially losing her mind. She kept glancing at me, waiting for me to say something. She burned the garlic bread because she was too distracted pretending to check her phone. She dropped a plate in the sink, cursed under her breath, then forced the most unnatural smile I had ever seen. I didn't react to any of it. I just ate my food, made casual conversation with Caleb, and let her stew in her own paranoia. By bedtime, she cracked. She climbed into bed, stared at the ceiling for a full minute, then turned to me. Mo. I yawned. She hesitated. Are you okay? I turned to face her, completely deadpan. Why wouldn't I be? She blinked. You just seem weird. I smiled. Oh, I feel great. She swallowed. Okay. She didn't sleep much that night. I could tell. Every time I shifted, she went still, like she was waiting for me to confront her. But I didn't, because I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I got up early. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and walked straight past Linda without a word. She sat up. Where are you going? I stopped in the doorway. Oh, just out. She squinted. Out where? I smiled. Don't worry about it. Then I walked out the door, got in my truck, and drove off. I wasn't going to the hotel. Not yet. First, I had a little surprise to set up. Linda wanted to be sneaky. She had no idea who she was messing with. I wasn't going to waste my energy yelling. That's what Linda wanted. A big, dramatic scene where she could twist everything around, play the victim, and maybe even squeeze out a few tears for effect. No, she wasn't getting that from me. She was getting something much colder. So I went to work. Not my actual job. That could wait. No, I spent the next few hours making sure Linda's downfall was as smooth, efficient, and legally airtight as possible. First stop was a lawyer's office. Because if there's one thing I wasn't going to do, it was let Linda turn this into a messy, drawn-out circus. I wanted a clean break. Quick, effective, and with zero chances of her slithering her way back in. I explained the situation to the lawyer, minus the sarcasm, and within minutes, we had a game plan. Next, I made a few calls. One to our bank, making sure everything joint was locked down so Linda wouldn't go on some desperate spending spree when she realized what was happening. One to my buddy who worked in real estate, asking him exactly how fast I could remove someone from my home when the mortgage was in my name. Turns out, pretty fast. By noon, everything was in motion. And then came the fun part. I went home, parked in the driveway, and sat there for a minute, enjoying the calm before the storm. Then I walked inside. Linda was waiting in the living room, trying to act casual. "Where were you?" I smiled. "Just out." She folded her arms. "Mo." I cut her off. "Linda, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer." She stiffened. "Okay." I held up my phone and tapped the screen. The picture of the hotel receipt I found in her car popped up, big and clear. I turned the screen toward her. "You want to tell me what you were doing here?" Linda froze. I could actually see her brain short-circuiting. She stared at the screen like it was written in another language, then forced a nervous laugh. "I don't know what that is." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, that's weird, because it was in your car. The car you don't let anyone else drive." Her fingers twitched. "Maybe someone left it there." I nodded slowly. "Sure, that makes perfect sense. Some random person broke into your locked car, adjusted the seat, and just happened to leave behind a receipt for a hotel stay on the exact night you were working late." She swallowed. "I don't know how it got there." I sighed. "Linda, you have about 3 seconds to drop the act before I stop pretending to care what you have to say." Her whole face twisted in frustration. "Why are you doing this?" I tilted my head. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe because my wife has been sneaking around behind my back like some D-list criminal?" I held up a hand. "Nope, we're done here." She blinked. "What?" I pulled a folder out of my jacket and tossed it onto the coffee table. "That's yours." Linda stared at it like it was a live bomb. "What is it?" "Divorce papers." Her breath hitched. "Mo." "You'll notice I'm being generous," I continued, cutting her off before she could start whatever fake emotional performance she had planned. "I'm not taking you to court over anything, and I'm not trying to make your life difficult. I just want you gone." Her jaw clenched. "You can't just kick me out." I smirked. "That's the thing, Linda. I can. House is in my name. The lawyer confirmed it this morning. You've got about 48 hours to pack your things and leave." She looked like she was about to throw something. "And what about Caleb?" "Oh, you get him," I said. "That's what the court will decide, and I'm not going to fight it. I already checked." She blinked, caught off guard. You don't want custody?" I shook my head. "Nope." Her shoulders relaxed slightly, like she thought she had finally found a weak spot to exploit. "Mo, I cut her off again. "But here's the thing, Linda." I leaned in slightly, making sure she understood exactly what was happening. "You may get Caleb, but you don't get me." She swallowed. "What does that mean?" "It means no second chances. No teary-eyed apologies 6 months from now. No, we should try to make this work for Caleb." I straightened up. "You made your choice. I'm just making it official." Her face crumbled. "Mo, please." I held up a hand. "No." She sucked in a sharp breath, and for the first time, I saw real panic in her eyes. Not fake, not calculated. Real. Because now she understood. I wasn't mad. I wasn't arguing. I wasn't going to sit here and let her spin this into some dramatic soap opera where she got to be the misunderstood wife who made a mistake. I was done, and she knew it. I gestured toward the folder on the table. "Sign those by tomorrow morning. If you don't, I'll file them myself, and trust me, you won't like that version of the deal." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I turned and walked toward the hallway. And just before I went into my room, I said, "Oh, and Linda?" She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes for a split second. I smiled coldly. "Good luck." Then I shut the door. She was gone by the next evening. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't help her pack. Caleb, surprisingly, took it well, probably because he saw it coming before she did. I kept the house. I kept my peace. And Linda? Well, she got exactly what she deserved. The house was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that felt empty, but the kind that felt right. The kind of quiet I hadn't had in a long time. Linda was gone. Packed up and out of my life within 24 hours, just like I said. She didn't make a big scene about it. No grand speeches, no teary confessions, no dramatic pleas for another chance. I think it finally hit her that she wasn't dealing with the old Mo. The one who might have sat around, stewing in his emotions, trying to understand why. The one who would have let her twist everything until I ended up apologizing for her mistakes. That version of me? Dead and buried. She didn't say goodbye when she left. Just took her bags, took Caleb, and walked out. I heard the car start. I didn't look out the window. I didn't need to. And just like that, it was over. 2 days later, my lawyer called to confirm that Linda had signed the papers without a fight. Probably because she realized she had no other choice. She got the car she was already driving, a small account in her name, and custody of Caleb. Though, let's be honest, that last part was just a formality. Because here's the thing, Caleb was 17. 17 and a half. Actually, in a matter of months, he'd be 18, legally free to live wherever the hell he wanted. And we both knew exactly where that would be. Linda might have gotten his custody on paper, but I wasn't worried. Caleb wasn't some little kid who needed to be shielded from the truth. He had seen everything unfold in real time, and he wasn't an idiot. A few nights after Linda left, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Caleb. Caleb, can I crash at your place on Saturday? Me, always. Linda didn't know it yet, but she had lost him too. I wasn't going to rub it in her face. I didn't need to. She'd figure it out soon enough. The weekend rolled around, and Caleb showed up with a duffel bag. No fanfare, no dramatic reunion. Just a normal Saturday like nothing had changed. I opened the door, and he walked past me into the house. So, Mom's losing her mind, he said, dropping his bag by the couch. I shut the door behind him. That fast? He flopped onto the chair across from me. Oh yeah, she's been trying to do this whole new life, new me thing, but it's not going great. She keeps pretending like everything's fine, but she's stress cleaning way too much. Like, I swear she reorganized the kitchen 3 times in 2 days. I smirked. That's what happens when people have too much free time and no distractions. He nodded. Oh, and she tried to get all deep and emotional with me last night. Started talking about new beginnings and how we need to stick together as a family. I raised an eyebrow. She actually said that? Yeah. He snorted. I just stared at her. Like, seriously? You want to talk about family now? After all that? I let out a short laugh. What did you say? He shrugged. Told her I'd be spending most of my time over here. She didn't take it well. I could imagine. Linda had always been good at making people feel guilty, at twisting things around so she was the one being wronged. But this time, it wasn't working. Did she try to stop you? I asked. Caleb rolled his eyes. Oh, she tried. Gave me this whole speech about how she's still my mother and how we have to rebuild. I let her talk for a while, then told her I'd text her when I felt like visiting. I grinned. Cold. He smirked. Learned from the best. We didn't talk about Linda much after that. There wasn't anything left to say. The next few weeks were quiet, peaceful. Caleb started spending more nights at my place than Linda's, and she must have realized fighting him on it would only make things worse. The divorce was finalized. The house was mine. Life just moved on. One afternoon, I was out in the yard when my neighbor, Bill, wandered over, pretending to check his mailbox. So, he said, leaning on the fence, it's official, huh? She's gone? Yep. He let out a low whistle. Never thought I'd see the day. I smirked. You and me both. He gave me a long look. You good? I thought about it for a second. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I wasn't replaying conversations in my head, wondering where things went wrong. I wasn't waiting for some final confrontation or a last dramatic twist. I was just free. I nodded. Yeah, I'm good. Bill clapped me on the shoulder. Good. Now, come help me with my porch light before I electrocute myself again. I laughed. Bill, Maybe you should just call an electrician. Nah, I got you. Life didn't change overnight, but it did change. And for the first time in a long time, I liked where it was going. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel